The following segment is sponsored by Daniel A. White and Associates. It does not necessarily reflect the views of WDEL or Forever Media. Rick Jensen on 1150 AM, 1017 FM, WDEL.
I'm actually a client of Dan White and Associates, specializing in retirement income. And so glad that I've been... Look, Dan didn't give me exact advice on what to do with my rollover. You know, you take the 401k, you roll it over in an IRA, and for years and years and years, I invest in stocks, individual companies, not just mutual funds, right? And the 401k, let those guys do with the mutual fund, fine, whatever. And I've been more successful than not. I'll just put it that way. Did quite well a few years. And then we're talking about the markets and the Federal Reserve, looking at increasing interest rates, looking at the history of what happens. And, you know, Dan did not tell me what to do, but the advice was there. That's the short version. So I actually feel quite lucky that I know Dan White and I'm a client, because by the first week of January, instead of being 80% in the stock market, I was 20%. There are some companies I decided to keep for right or wrong. Best decision, seriously. On the phone right now is Andrew Wood. Andrew works with Dan White and Associates. He, too, is a financial planner specializing in retirement income. Bright guy, works in the Middletown office, and they always have some great advice after news at 1:30. So, Andrew, thanks for being on, man.
Thanks for having me, Rick.
So, today you sent me a note saying you want to talk about repaying a CRD, and I'm thinking, I think I might know what that means. We were talking off the air, and Andrew was laughing at me because I asked, is that COVID thingamajiggy deal? And he starts laughing at me. He goes, yeah, Rick, it's the coronavirus. What is the coronavirus?
Relief distribution.
Relief distribution. Right. And people have gotten hung up on this thing, haven't they?
They have. You know, at one point, I hope in my career that we will stop talking about this virus. I will say that. I do not like talking about it, but you know, if you remember back in 2020 when this whole thing was happening, people were pretty terrified. Not only about the virus, but you know, people lost jobs. You know, we shut down basically the entire economy. So Congress decided to enact the CARES Act, and they allowed for these coronavirus relief distributions. And basically what they allowed for qualified individuals, meaning they were impacted by COVID specifically, they could pull up to about $100,000 from their retirement accounts, regardless of their age, penalty-free. Now, that doesn't mean tax-free, but it meant penalty-free, okay? And they added a little sweetener there, too, is that you were allowed to spread the taxation over a 3-year period. So they gave you a little bit of a tax benefit as well. And again, I mean, that was because there was a panic. People lost their jobs. We didn't know how long it was going to take, you know, to get back, you know, into the workforce. And then next thing you know, we've got a pretty, I would call, hot jobs market that still exists today. So people, you know, were taking these distributions out because they were afraid. They didn't know how long they'd be out of work, and they wanted to be prepared for that. Right?
Yeah.
So long story short, people, you know, have gone back to work. They may have taken these distributions and they didn't necessarily need it. Well, the government also allows for them to repay those distributions within 3 years of that money actually being deposited in their account. So that's a good thing.
So,
all right,
what if you took the money and you did need it, and right now you're still struggling?
Yeah, that was only for 2020. They only allow those distributions for 2020. So, you know, prior to 59.5, there's going to be penalties and obviously taxes as well. So that would be much more of a challenge. I know that there are some individuals that are in that type of situation, but they have not. They didn't extend that past 2020. It was really that 1-year opportunity where you could take that distribution penalty free.
So what are you doing to help people through this if they find themselves in a bind?
Yeah, so especially if they are in a bind.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the tough part, but you know, just making sure that they had a plan. You know, obviously there are some situations that you can't really avoid, but that requires a little bit more flexibility to their plan as well. So, you know, making sure that there was flexibility built in. I will tell you that, you know, especially with the jobs market today, and who knows how long this is going to go on, but a lot of those people have gone back to work and they just didn't necessarily need the money, and they can repay those those distributions back, and they have until, again, the 3 years since they originally took that distribution.
The bottom line is make sure you got a plan and you adhere to that plan to get that money paid back. Otherwise, what kind of penalties are you looking at?
Meaning, if you took an early distribution?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, there's taxes, and then if you're prior to 59.5, then you have the early 10% distribution penalty as well.
Here's another problem too that we're seeing. There are people who are they're applying for a job. And it could be insurance industry, could be tech industry. It's happening all around the country, happening here in the Mid-Atlantic region as well, Andrew, wherein you have somebody who they're applying for a job. And it's a great job. It's like, $80,000 a year or more plus bonuses, things like that. And they say, wow, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. So they go on a vacation, they come back, and the company says, oh, we are rescinding the job offer. Says, wait a minute, what do you mean? We're not going to fill this position anymore. It turns out that a lot of companies, big companies, are either not hiring as they thought they would, or they are rescinding job offers because the experts they're listening to say we could be heading into a recession. In fact, we're likely heading into a recession. So if we're heading into a recession, could start fourth quarter of this year, particularly they're looking at next year as well, then you need to be planning for that eventuality or possibility. I just say possibility as well. So what if somebody has a distribution and they need to get it paid back? This is time specific. There might be a recession coming. Do people need to change their plan and pay this back faster, sooner, or what?
So I think there's a little disconnect there. So if you took that distribution in 2020, is that what we're referring to?
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't have to pay back that distribution. They gave you that one up to $100,000 without penalty. Yes, you had to pay taxes on the distribution.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, so you could pay that back if you didn't necessarily need that within the 3-year window without penalty or even paying taxes. Now, one thing I will point out, if you were in that type of situation where you lost your job, you took that distribution, decided to pay it back, and you've already paid the taxes on the distribution, just make sure that you do file an amended return for that year, so you can get your own money back for the taxes you had already paid. So
I'm just glad I didn't do it. I'd say, and if you have questions, call Andrew Wood. This guy knows that he's doing it. 888-690-8820. 888-690-8820. Anything else you want to cover on that?
No, I hope we avoid this recession. I really do. But again, when it comes to retirement planning, just make sure you have a plan, and you want to make sure you're going to be okay regardless of what happens going forward. Yeah.
In fact, this Sunday morning, 7 a.m., Dan White's going to be talking about an asset protection strategy to reduce stress and loss. An asset protection strategy to reduce stress and loss, in that order, which I think that's the correct order because it's so stressful thinking about what might happen, and if you're at 20 years of retirement, 15, 10, 5, or whatever, you got to plan for that. Andrew, I'm really glad that you work on this stuff. You're a good guy, and I appreciate it.
Good talking to you, Rick.
All right, take care. That's Andrew with Dan White and Associates.